Good evening. It is pretty late. It's almost 11:30, but I'm doing this at a time when my house is quiet, and I can kind of collect my thoughts. There is no rhyme or reason as to when I do these videos, so I'm not really even expecting anybody to be on at this hour, but I am going to start downloading these and uploading them to my YouTube channel in case my account gets taken down. Some crazy things are going on with my accounts, both Facebook and Instagram. So if I suddenly disappear off of either one of those platforms, I know on Instagram people are telling me they don't even see my stuff, and my stories don't show up in their queue. So anyway, I'm going to start trying to download these and put them in different places. So, hey Jessica. There's no rhyme or reason as to when I'm doing these videos, just when things kind of come to my mind and I kind of can't let them go. I've learned to start kind of following through and researching some things. And so let me give you just a brief back story to this, and hopefully this video won't be as long as the other one was, my first one was. But anyway, have you ever heard a phrase that someone says and it just sticks with you and you're just like, I can't shake why that just kind of, I don't know, it kind of almost caused like a feeling or a deep like, ugh, you know, just, or like, why did they say, or it just really bothered you? Back during, like I said in my first video, COVID has been very eye-opening for me in a lot of ways, and I started really paying attention in March and April when things got rolling with that. And if y'all don't mind, I'm going to swipe these comments over. Maybe, can I do that? Maybe I can swipe them down. Anyway, I started really kind of paying attention more to different things and researching things differently. And so when I heard a comment during, or a phrase during the last presidential debate, which I guess it was the second, since the actual second one got canceled, I heard a phrase, and I mean, I miss the days of texting my friends during a football game, and now we're texting during presidential debates and other crazy things that are going on. And so the minute that I heard this phrase, I had been texting back and forth with a couple of different friends, and I texted one of them and I said, did he just say, and the phrase I'm about to talk about, and she responded back to me, yes, that was weird. And I was like, okay. So that's just, I mean, it wasn't just me that it kind of hit funny. So I decided to look it up, because I just randomly put it in a Google thing and started looking it up, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is just weird. This is just weird. So bear with me here, okay? So during the presidential debate, they were talking about, I believe it was COVID response. Like, what would your COVID response be? Obviously, this was to candidate Biden, because we've already seen what Trump's COVID response has been, and he's been, you know, he did all the briefings and the daily briefings for a while there. And so he, of course, criticized pretty much everything Trump had done. And then he said the phrase, we're about to head into a dark winter. And I was like, and that was the thing I texted my friend. I was like, did he just say dark winter? I mean, it just sounded so like ominous. And I was like, why is that bothering me so bad, you know? But, you know, a lot of times I can't explain why things bother me in the moment. But then that's what kind of spurred me to start digging. And so, sure enough, I started digging into that. And so I want to share some of the things that I found with you guys and kind of try to tie everything together, that, you know, it's not just COVID. It's not just presidential election. It's not just Trump. It's not just, it's all connected. Every bit of it's connected. And I know I read the article on my first video, and thank you so much to everybody that shared that video. I've gotten some of the most awesome messages in my inbox from people that I don't know them, I've never met them before, but just that it encouraged them, and that's awesome. Like I said in the video, if it encourages anybody, that's the goal. So I don't know if you've noticed lately, on a few of my posts, if you're friends with me, and obviously if you're watching this right now, you're friends with me on Facebook, you've noticed that I've put a hashtag at the end of some of my posts, and I say hashtag PSYOP, which stands for PSYOP, which is short for psychological operations. And basically, I'll just read you a definition of what a PSYOP is. It's an operation to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. And so the first video I did, I talked about the coming coup, and I talked about how a lot of the things that the media are doing right now, it's a psyop. They are fomenting this rage and working people up into and trying to convince people that Joe Biden is the president-elect. If he was truly the president-elect, I would not be making these videos, okay? I would be making videos, but probably different ones, talking about different things about his policies and things that you need to be looking out for. But he's not the president-elect, okay? Today is November 11th, 2020, and he is not the vice president-elect. And I talked about how it was a lie, and it was based on a lie, and how the truth matters, and I'm going to get into that here in just a second. But so I've been using that hashtag PSYOP, and I didn't know if people would even notice that, or maybe they were wondering what it meant, so I wanted to mention that. And how the media is enabling this charade to go on, and how it's going to not turn out well because of the things that they keep saying, the lies that they keep saying, the headlines that keep saying, you know, Trump claims without evidence, so-and-so claims without evidence, talking about the voter fraud and things like that. So anyway, back to the dark winter. So before I get into that, I want to read a verse. And yes, this is a Bible verse, so if that doesn't interest you, you can tune out right now for that. But in 2 Corinthians 10, verse 3, it says, "For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ." And I just kept thinking about that today, about how much we need to guard our mind and guard our thoughts and guard the things that we listen to and the things that we allow ourselves to believe and buy into, that is so important right now. And the reason that it is so important is because we live in a world that is under a spell of deceit, and we have people on every side saying all the things about, they're promoting lies, promoting half-truths, promoting things from one angle. And so that just kept playing over and over in my mind. This is a psychological operation, and we have to reorient ourselves back to the truth, and we have to seek out truth. It's harder and harder to find nowadays, and I say all the time, fact check me, go back and check things that I say, go back and see if they're true, see if you find things that agree with it. But like I mentioned, I started on that phrase of dark winter, and I looked it up, and the first thing I typed in was dark winter, and I use a search engine called DuckDuckGo. I know somebody mentioned in a comment on one of my posts that DuckDuckGo was was not as good as it used to be, and they mentioned a couple of others. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I haven't had time to look into that. But I typed in the phrase dark winter. This, I think it was the second article that popped up in DuckDuckGo, and I can put links to these like I did the first video. I went ahead and printed it out so I could read a couple of things, or a few things out of this article to you. But it was published in a I think it's an online magazine. It may be a real magazine, but or not a, but you know, like an actual magazine, if they even print those anymore. But it was on foreignpolicy.com, and this was from April 1st of this year. And the title of it says, America's Pandemic War Games Don't End Well. And it talks about, I'll just read this to you. The byline on it says, one simulation of an uncontrolled disease outbreak concluded with riots and the National Guard on the streets. It talks about, on June 22nd of 2001, a group of well-known U.S. officials and a handful of senior policymakers gathered at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland for a senior-level exercise that simulated a biological weapons attack. An outbreak of deadly smallpox. In this case, it was smallpox. This was designed by Johns Hopkins Center for Civilian Biodefense Strategies. I need to bring up Johns Hopkins a little bit later too. And the Washington-based Center for Strategic and International Studies. The operation was called Dark Winter. The simulation was conducted to gauge how senior leaders would respond to such an attack, including such high-level participants as Senator Sam Nunn, who played the president, former White House advisor David Gergen, the National Security Advisor, and the retired career diplomat Frank Wisner, the Secretary of State. But Dark Winter has since become legendary in senior policymaking circles in Washington for a different reason. It has regularly been cited by its designers and participants as the clearest exhibit of the spiraling stresses and potential social collapse that could be sparked by a public health crisis. Okay, so this was in 2001, and the operation was called Dark Winter. Okay. I won't read all of this to you guys. Parts of it I'm just going to pull out. This part says, it was talking about the different things that they went through in the exercise. And one part says domestic turmoil sparked by political uncertainty with sporadic rioting, quelled by National Guard units in large urban areas as grocery stores are shuttered, and an increasing reliance on the willingness and unwillingness of individual citizens to self-quarantine to stop the spread of the contagion. On further down, it says the Dark Winter exercise ended on the second day of the simulation after 3 long sessions and purposely without resolution. So they weren't looking for a resolution. But then the exercise's goal was not to predict the future, but to dramatize the issues faced by the federal government during a nationwide health crisis. In this, it masterfully succeeded, showing that what begins as a localized disease outbreak, in this case it was smallpox, in Oklahoma City and then in 2 other densely populated urban areas, can quickly become a crisis that envelops the entire nation and the world. And then it talks about the different issues with borders and travel and, Canada and Mexico. There is no worst case scenario with the collapse of American democracy, but democratic institutions are severely tested and strained. After Dark Winter was concluded, the participants drew clear lessons from the exercise, focusing on the federal government's lack of preparation for public health crisis. So this was 2001. They realized that they were not prepared for a public health crisis based on this. The lessons drawn from 2001 Dark Winter exercise provided a stark preview of what the United States would face in 2020. The unfamiliarity of governing officials with public health issues and the medical options available to address them, a likely lack of good information in the earliest moments of the crisis. Is the outbreak localized? How many Americans are affected? Where are they located? What health resources are available to treat them? Like, they gamed all this out. The need to act quickly and decisively to identify the threatening virus, and more crucially, to identify who is infected and who isn't. Okay, so all of this is probably sounding familiar to you. This is all the things that they said we did not know how to do for coronavirus. Dark Winter was an exercise designed to push the system to failure in order to learn about its vulnerabilities. That was a quote from Andrew Lakoff, a professor of sociology at the University of Southern California, who has studied Dark Winter and its impact. He goes on to say, the lessons of Dark Winter shaped biological preparedness policy for the next 10 years, but it is always difficult to ensure that preparedness is sustained over time. Okay, so that would have been 10 years, so that would have been 2011. On down further, it says, it's no surprise that Lakoff has been following the national response to the coronavirus pandemic closely and worrying that the crisis portrayed by Dark Winter is being replayed now in what is clearly not a simulation. Then it quotes somebody else down further. Dark Winter is extremely important, but there are any number of follow-ons right up until very recently, including one in 2019, last year, called Event 201, that simulated what is happening right now with the coronavirus. If you remember on my last video, I talked about how they game everything out that's happened. They've gamed out this, what's going to happen if Trump doesn't, what the different scenarios, there's 4 different outcomes that they predict and what we're going to do and what we should do. And they gamed all of that out. And I mentioned in that video that I had posted earlier in the year about Event 201 took place, and I believe it was October of last year at Johns Hopkins. I told you I would mention Johns Hopkins later on. Johns Hopkins, same place that it took, that coordinated Operation Dark Winter, also coordinated Event 201, funded by, well, I'll let you look that up because I don't want to mention too many names on here in case that gets me taken off of here. But there was an event, and they have a website, it's Event 201, you can look it up, and you can see who funded it and who ran it, and who was, who participated in it. So, interestingly though, it says, by one count, there have been no less than 4 separate U.S. simulations that prefigured the events that unfold in central China in January of this year. On down it says, and in October 2019, Event 201 presented an exercise that started with an outbreak of a novel coronavirus, a high-impact respiratory pathogen pandemic, as its designers premised, that spread globally and that presciently forecast COVID-19. So they're saying it forecasted it, almost identical. What are the odds? So Event 201 was basically an exercise that forecast the economic troubles a pandemic, flip the page, would likely cause, and proposed a series of economic preparedness steps the U.S. and global economic actors could take in responding to the crisis we're facing now. According to the exercise, the pandemic, a respiratory illness that starts in Brazil but ends up killing 65 million people globally, would place outsized economic strains on international medical supply chains unless there were broader cooperation among global health organizations and coordination among supply chain providers. Event 201 showed that an economic response to a coronavirus outbreak would mirror the medical response gamed out in Dark Winter, with an economic response that would be hampered in its earliest days by a lack of good information, which would in turn destabilize markets and seed monetary instability. The exercise presaged the events of COVID-19 that would take place within months of the simulation's end. What a coinkydink. It very clearly showed that a global pandemic would take a global response. And yes, I'm emphasizing that word on purpose. You'll find out why in a minute, if you don't already know. Larson said, this was the person quoting that. Larson said, and then this is their words, it was uncannily accurate. On on down, here is a senior scholar for the Center of Health Security. She says the truth of this, the lesson, is that we just didn't take the coronavirus reports coming out of China seriously enough soon enough. We just weren't quick enough, and now we're scrambling to catch up. It is a real problem for hospitals which are bearing the brunt of this mistake. We needed to surge help into our nation's hospitals right away, and we didn't. It didn't need to happen. Of course, the slow response outlined by Gronville is bound to be a central issue in any after-action report, as it was in each of the simulations that started with Dark Winter. The issue is, after all, deeply political, as Dark Winter showed, and it is not just lives that are at stake. So too is the ability of the American form of government to respond deftly to a nationwide medical crisis. In the earliest days of the crisis, it was clear that the response was insufficiently proactive at the federal level. Over the last century, we have developed a system for governing crisis situations that has saved us from falling into dictatorship in times of emergency. We have shown that a democracy can respond as well as a dictatorship to emergencies, but I wonder if our system will hold up in the face of the current crisis. I certainly hope so. End of the article there. Okay, so after I did that, I Googled the phrase again, Dark Winter, or I didn't Google it, I DuckDuckGo'd it. The phrase Biden Dark Winter, because he said it during the presidential debate. I was looking for the clip of that so I could listen to it again. What surprised me was what popped up was him, I believe it was the 9th. So yes, on Monday, he addressed the nation. He addressed the nation in front of a big display behind it that says Office of the President-elect. I've never in my life seen that happen, where a president-elect, even though he's not the president-elect, addressed the nation in front of, from a lectern stand with the flags and looking very presidential, with a screen or whatever behind him that says Office of the President-elect. And I was like, that looks so weird. Why? And it's like, because it's a lie, because he's not the president-elect. He used that phrase again, and this time it says Biden warns of a very dark winter as U.S. approaches 10 million coronavirus cases. And that's just, I Google searched, or DuckDuckGo searched it, and I just printed out the page. He warned of a dark winter on October the 22nd. Biden warns of a very dark winter. Joe Biden still facing very dark. Joe Biden says U.S. still facing very dark winter. Very dark winter, dark winter. I mean, it printed off like 4 pages of results. We're still facing a very dark winter. And I'm like, this guy is stuck on this dark winter phrase. And, I mean, it's just, what in the world is that all about? Well, another thing is, in the parts that I just read to you, I was emphasizing the phrase global response, global this, global that. Well, a few weeks ago, something came up in another search that I did, and I always try to track things down. If it sticks in my mind, like I said, that's how I know where I want to go look. Here is an article. This one's actually from June 25th, and so this has been going on during COVID, off and on, and I've seen it. It showed up in several places that I frequently look. But this term, the Great Reset, and I've shared a lot of this stuff. I've shared on social media, but like I said, unless your attention is on this kind of stuff, you probably just scrolled right by it if you even saw it at all. But there's several of these articles out here. I just happened to print this one off because I thought it was very concise. This one is from The Hill, and the title of it is Introducing the Great Reset, World Leaders' Radical Plan to Transform the Economy. This particular one, I printed it out in black and white, but that's Prince Charles. And I'll just read you a little bit of it. it says, for decades, progressives have attempted to use climate change to justify liberal policy. And we've heard about climate change in the news recently, too, because of the fires and everything, and also as a major topic at the last presidential debate. But their latest attempt, a new proposal called the Great Reset, is the most ambitious and radical plan the world has seen in more than a generation. At a virtual meeting earlier in June hosted by the World Economic Forum, some of the planet's most powerful business leaders, government officials, and activists announced a proposal to reset the global economy. There's that word again. Instead of traditional capitalism, the high-profile group said the world should adopt more socialistic policies, such as wealth taxes, additional regulations, and massive Green New Deal-like government programs. Every country from the United States to China must participate, emphasis mine. And every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed, wrote Klaus Schwab. Look up Klaus Schwab's Twitter account if you just want to have every hair on your head stand on end at the stuff this guy comes up with. The founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. In an article published on the WEF's website. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. Schwab also said that all aspects of our societies and economies must be revamped, from education to social contracts and working conditions. I'm going to put links to these articles too in the description after I'm done with this, so you can go, and any term that you don't recognize or you are not familiar with or wondering what does that even mean, look it up. Social contracts is very interesting. So it has a very strong connection with the wearing of the you-know-what's on your face. Part of the behavior modification of society. Joining Schwab at the World Economic Forum event was Prince Charles, one of the primary proponents of the Great Reset, Gina Gopinath, I'm probably butchering this name, but the chief economist at the International Monetary Fund, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, and CEOs and presidents of major international corporations such as Microsoft and BP. Activists from groups such as Green Space International and a variety of academics also attended the event and have expressed their support for the Great Reset. Although many details about the Great Reset won't be rolled out until the World Economic Forum meets in Davos in January of 2021, the general principles of the plan are clear. The world needs massive new government programs and far-reaching policies comparable to those offered by American socialists, such as Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, in their Green New Deal plan. Or put another way, we need a form of socialism. We need a form of socialism, a word the World Economic Forum has deliberately avoided using, all while calling for countless socialist and progressive plans. We need to design policies to align with investment in people and the environment, said the General Secretary of the International Trade Union Confederation, Sharon Burrow. But above all, the longer-term perspective is about rebalancing economies. Right? Rebalancing. Socialism. One of the main themes of the June meeting was that the coronavirus pandemic has created an important opportunity, in quotes, for many of the World Economic Forum's members to enact their radical transformation of capitalism, which they acknowledge would likely not have been made possible without the pandemic. We have a golden opportunity to see something good from this crisis. Its unprecedented shockwaves may well make people more receptive to big visions of change, said Prince Charles. Not quite so charming anymore, huh? At the meeting, and adding later, it is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. This is all their own words, you guys. All their own words. I'm not making this stuff up. Like I said, I will put links in the description when I'm done. You might be wondering how these leaders plan to convince the world to completely alter its economy over the long run, since the COVID-19 pandemic most assuredly won't remain a crisis forever. The answer is that they've already identified another crisis will require expansive government interventions: climate change. The threat of climate change has been more gradual than COVID-19, but its devastating reality for many people and their livelihoods around the world, and its ever greater potential to disrupt surpasses even that of COVID-19, Prince Charles said. Of course, these government officials, activists, and influencers can't impose a systemic change of this size on their own, which is why they have already started to activate vast networks of left-wing activists from around the world who will, throughout 2021, demand changes in line with the Great Reset. According to the World Economic Forum, its 2021 Davos Summit will include thousands of members of the Global Shapers community. Global Shaper. Sorry, I just lost my place, you guys. It's so late. Okay. Its 2021 Davos Summit will include thousands of members of the Global Shapers community, youth activists located in 400 cities across the planet. The Global Shapers program was involved in the widespread climate strikes of 2019, and more than 1,300 have already been trained by the Climate Reality Project, the highly influential, well-funded climate activist organization run by former Vice President Al Gore, who serves on the World Economic Forum's Board of Trustees. For those of us who support free markets, the Great Reset is nothing short of terrifying. Our current crony capitalist system has many flaws, to be sure, but granting more power to the government agents who created that crony system and eroding property rights is not the best way forward. America is the world's most powerful, prosperous nation precisely because of the very market principles the Great Reset supporters loathe, not in spite of them. Making matters worse, the left has already proven throughout the COVID-19 pandemic that it can radically transform political realities in the midst of a crisis, so it's not hard to see how the Great Reset could eventually come to fruition. Can you imagine George W. Bush or Bill Clinton printing trillions of dollars and mailing it to millions of people who didn't lose their jobs? This would have been unthinkable just a couple of decades ago. Today, this policy garners bipartisan support. Prince Charles was right. The present pandemic is a golden opportunity for radical change, and if Al Gore, Prince Charles, and the rest of the World Economic Forum can convince enough people that attempting to stop climate change is also worth dramatically pushing humanity toward greater government control, then radical and catastrophic change is exactly what we're going to get. So, that's from The Hill. So anyway, guarding your mind. That's why I titled it this. Guarding your mind is you seeking out the truth for yourself. You turning off mainstream media. Listen, I'm gonna make fun of them by calling them out every chance I can get, and I don't mean that in an ugly way. As far as like, oh, that's not Christian to say that. I'm going to point out their deception, like it's my job, because they are hell-bent, because it comes from hell. They are hell-bent on telling you what reality is, and it's not what you see, it's what they want you to believe and what they need you to believe, because all of this stuff, like I said, it's all connected. It is all, they have to manufacture a crisis in order to get people so afraid and so scared that they will literally agree to do whatever to make themselves feel safe again. And so I'm not saying COVID's not real. I'm a nurse. I know COVID's real. I'm saying the response to COVID has been insane. So, prepare your mind, guard your mind, we destroy every argument We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive. You have to take every thought captive. You have to say, whoa, whoa, whoa. But when your mind starts running away, afraid, I've talked to so many people, especially since I put that last video out, that are scared to death, that don't know what's going on, that are feel like the world's in turmoil. Y'all, it's, as far as the government, we're good, right? As far as like, we have a president right now. It's not like we're without a leader. We have a president still, and we don't have a president-elect yet because the election results have not been certified. We don't have the Electoral College certifications yet, and so, but that's fine because it's all good. We have time for that. We also have a constitution that has made concession for all of this. I mean, the founding fathers were brilliant because they knew the hearts of man, apparently, and how people with power would act, even on into 2020. And so there are safeguards in there too. So I want you to guard your heart and your mind. I want you, when you hear phrases like dark winter and, you know, the world is coming to an end, and all of these people that are pushing this global agenda because they need to have a global crisis like climate change. Again, like COVID-19, I'm not going to say that climate change is not real, because climate change happens. It's part of it. Part of living in this world is climate change. But it is not the social and economic and worldwide disaster that they try to make you believe. If it were, why are people like Barack Obama buying coastal property? Why are insurance companies insuring properties that are along the coastlines if the coastlines are going to disappear? They wouldn't do it. And so people like Bill Gates and they buy all these properties that are on coastal Washington. Barack Obama has a huge mansion in Martha's Vineyard. All these. Why would they buy these places if they were just going to fall off into the ocean? So they needed a more tangible crisis like COVID-19 that they could blow up and use as a control mechanism to get people living in fear. It's a lot easier to convince people who are living in fear that they need the government to come in and help, which Ronald Reagan had a quote about that said, you know, what is the 9 most dangerous words are, it might not be 9, but whatever, his quote said, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. So anyway, I just wanted to come on here and read a little bit of that to you because he keeps saying that phrase, dark winter, and I didn't realize he had continued to say it. I had heard him say it during that one time during the presidential debate, and it just kind of, I don't know, it just hit me in a way that I don't remember a lot of what he said, but I remember that phrase, dark winter. And usually that's for a reason that I remember those things. And I've learned to kind of chase it down and see where it leads. So I was going to see if anybody had anything that I needed to answer. If I may have to go back and just look and see. But anyway, hopefully that was encouraging to you, because it is very much a psychological operation to convince you that things are how they want you to interpret them, not how they really are. So I'm hoping to just kind of bring a dose of reality back to what the Constitution says, what our government says. Another thing too, I'll try to find a link and post it in the comment in the description section. I mentioned Davos, where they met, the World Economic Forum met at Davos. Trump's speech when he was invited to Davos, and what he said to them, and then what the fallout of what he said to them. It was an amazing speech about how, you could just really see the way he loved this country. And a certain person whose name starts with an S, first name starts with a G, what he said, in response to Trump's speech. I'll see if I can find the link for that and put it in here too, but it makes a lot more sense as to why he is hated even more, and why they need you to hate him, and why they are continuing on with this charade to get him to make it seem like he is doing something wrong by not conceding an election that he hasn't technically lost yet. So anyway, guard your mind, seek the truth. Truth matters. 2 + 2 is 4. I posted that earlier today. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Thank you all for sending me articles and sending me videos. I appreciate it very much, because it really helps me with my research, because I do have limited time to do a lot of this stuff. And just keep them coming. If there's anything that you have certain questions about, I try to save links to articles and videos that I've come across. Some of them have been scrubbed. Some of them remain. If I can get my hands back on the article or whatever that can help you, I will send it to you. But if you have any comments or questions, just send them to me, or put them down here in the comments here. I'm going to try to save this video and then upload it to YouTube probably in the morning. So I hope you don't mind if your names are on here. I tried to slide it over where the comments disappeared, but I couldn't get it to go away. So that's it. Y'all have a good night. It's late. I'm going to bed. And it's exciting times, y'all. I haven't changed. Like I said, I haven't changed my mind. I haven't changed my opinion. I'm very hopeful. Talked to somebody tonight at church and told them, you know, I'm not in any way discouraged whatsoever. I'm very thankful to be living in this time in history. So y'all have a good night. I'll talk to you soon.